Hey everybody, this is Mike Kai from Hawaii, and I'm so honored and blessed that you are listening to this podcast, watching this video cast right now in wherever you are in the world. I hope you're staying healthy and safe. And I am right now. I'm in my beautiful house in Hawaii. I'm looking outside at breezy winds, breezy conditions, blue skies, bright sun, and I'm stuck in the house, everybody. I don't know how you feel, but I feel the same way. I got to get out of here. But I don't know how your quarantine or your house arrest is going right now, but I'm trusting that you're having a really good time. I don't know about you, but I've been eating stuff I shouldn't be eating. Maybe I should be eating. I started eating, again, these wild sardines. How's this, everybody? Wild sardines. This is great with rice. I just wanted to add that to add some value to your life. Speaking about adding some major value to your life, I am really excited and honored today. They're one of my really close friends. Gotten to know each other in the last 2 years, and I'd call him a brother from a Swedish mother. And I'm excited to have him here today. And his name is Dr. Robi Sonderegger. Dr. Robi Sonderegger. He's an internationally acclaimed and recognized clinical psychologist, known for psychology from taking it from the front line to the forefront. In addition to that, he's also a sought-after, compelling speaker. He went from ski instructor to the celebrities. Now, all of a sudden, in time, not all of a sudden, but in years gone by, has become one of the top go-to psychologists in the Southern Hemisphere and even in the Americas and in Asia. One great thing I love about him is I get free advice, free clinical psychology from this guy. And he's been a blessing to my life. He's speaking to 1.5 million people or more on some of the largest platforms that you could ever have an opportunity to speak on, like Hillsong and so on and so forth. And he lives in Brisbane, Australia, one of my close friends. I am so glad that he's with us. Everybody, you're going to know more about him if you don't know him already. Dr. Robi Sonderegger, welcome to the podcast and the video cast.
So great to be with you, Mike. And thanks so much for having me. And look, I love what you're doing. I love your family. I especially love your location, but I guess everyone else says that as well. But look, it's just great to be able to have a bit of therapy on the couch between brothers and see where this goes this morning.
Exactly. Speaking of therapy, I've been having a good time. The last time we saw each other, you were speaking at our men's conference, and we had you, and we had an incredible time, and Pastor Mark Ramsey all the way from Brisbane as well, and we had an incredible time. And the men really loved your messages. You were just on point, brilliant, I would say. And but it's so good to have you. How's the family doing over there?
Well, I haven't seen the family in that kind of long a time. I've been in self-quarantine, and when I say quarantine, not just staying at home, but literally isolated from the family, having just returned from Europe just over a week ago. But I've only got 3 more days of quarantine to go, and then come on, bring on the family. Can't wait to be with them again.
So where are you quarantining, and where's the family right now?
Well, we're in the same location, but in our house we have like a bit of a separate wing that's separated from the rest, and so there's a gate that's put in place to keep the kids from coming through, and so we can hear each other, and we can call out and we can talk. We just can't touch or hug just yet, but that too is coming.
Yeah, tell us about your wife and your kids. What are their names?
Oh, look, I have an amazing wife. She is my therapist, my personal therapist. She's also a clinical psychologist, and she keeps me in check. And together we have 5 children, ranging in ages from 6 to 16. So the full spectrum keeps us busy, keeps us on our toes, and most importantly, it keeps us humble. And yeah, it's a wild ride. But hey, if anyone was to ask me, hey, what do you do? My first answer is husband to my wife, father to my kids, and a little psychology on the side.
That's pretty awesome. So they're on the other side of the fence, and you're on this side, and the poor wife's got to discipline them, and then you go like, "You got it, honey. It's all you. It's all you."
That's it. You got it. This is like therapy. I'm sure many people listening right now go, I would love to be totally isolated from the kids and just have some time out and read a book and put my feet up and have the husband or the wife, just deal with that stuff and homeschooling and all the rest of it. So, God bless them.
So are you making your food, or are they passing the food to you?
I've got my own fridge. I've got my own kettle. Most importantly, I've got my own coffee. I've even got a bottle of wine. It's a party up here. I'm telling you.
Man, it's like a man cave on steroids then right there.
the only downside is it's a party for one, and so we have to cyber cheers each other.
Yeah. Well, kidding aside, speaking about being isolated and quarantined, right now, I think one of the biggest topics, and you're the perfect person to speak about it, is what's going on in the world today, of what's happening with the social distancing and the isolation and all that kind of terminology that we never had before. Social distancing, that's a brand new one, right? And now all of a sudden, here we are, we're in homes. And even though families may not be quarantined from each other like you are currently for the next 3 days, there are people who are living under the same house 24/7. And I wonder, what is your take on the mental health of people right now?
Whenever we get pushed into a small space and we're living in each other's pockets for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it's almost like a press. We get squeezed, and whenever you squeeze a piece of fruit, juice tends to come out. The question is, what kind of juice are you made of? What's being revealed? Is it bitter juices? Is it something that's full of frustration and people getting on each other's nerves? Or is it sweet, beautiful juice where the best of you is coming to the fore, making the best of this opportunity to actually have a Sabbath, if you will, from the crazy runaround, busy life that we all tend to lead? And so they're the real questions that people should be asking themselves right about now. What kind of juice is coming out as I'm being pressed?
That's really interesting, because no doubt about it that during the pressure, some of the best of us or the worst of us comes out, maybe a combination of the two, maybe an imbalance of one over the other in times like these, because they normally happen anyway, right? Under pressure, they're going to happen anyway. But now, more than ever before, being in homes and where everybody's gone from the outside, now everything's to the inside. I would imagine more than now more than ever, a lot of that is happening. Have you heard anything? Has there anything that you've been watching or listening to, or other colleagues have been calling you and said, hey, have you noticed these things? Or more of these social trends are making its way into people's private lives?
Well, there's a slippery slope that tends to take place. And yes, we've observed it, but we've also observed it in research for the longest time. And we're hearing anecdotal stories coming through now. But look, there's a slippery slope towards mental and emotional challenges when we lose our structure. So if we go to work or if we go to school, we have a structure. There's a time I need to get up, I need to get ready by, I need to leave the house by, I need to get to work by, and I finish work at a particular time. Work is at a particular place, and then I come back to a different place. We have dinner, we relax, and we go to bed. That's structure. But when we're stuck at home, it's kind of everything bleeds into each other. So my bedroom becomes my, living room where I watch movies, which is also, hey, I might as well just not get out of bed and just do my work from bed, and then I'll eat in bed, and so I'm doing all the things, different things in the same place, and then I've kind of got no structure because I'll binge watch Netflix until the wee hours, and then I won't wake up, and then work, I start getting to work, and then it just, everything is a mess. And so one of the keys to really shore up our mental and emotional well-being is to institute some kind of structure. And what kind of structure? Well, all you need to do is go on social media, check out, Instagram, and there's every man, woman, and their dog giving you advice as to how to handle the social isolation and do this and don't do this and all the rest of it. And look, some of those things might be great for you. Everyone seems to be an instant expert on this topic. But the key to remember is just discipline. If we can exercise some kind of regular rhythm and routine or discipline in my structure, that I wake up at a particular time, I start work at a particular time, I end work at a particular, whatever it is for you, whatever works best for you, have a pre-established structure, and it really will help in alleviating some of the mental and emotional challenges that may otherwise present.
I love that. The structure that we once had is gone. I mean, now we're a structureless kind of society. Even in our workplace, so we've gone from everybody, of course, like everybody else is going through this. We went from everybody in the office, keeping tabs on everybody, being able to walk down the corridor and be able to have a water cooler conversation, to be able to pull somebody into your office for a little sidebar conversation, a little correction, a little exhortation. Now all of that is being done either through a video screen or through text messaging, and those structures have been removed. But what I love about what you just said is to go back and institute some structure into your personal life. Waking up at a consistent time would be eating at a consistent time, working out at a consistent time, picking all of those things to make sure that even the kids, like a lot of people have their kids now at home, especially in Hawaii right now, who don't homeschool. And how do you manage and regulate the amount of telephone or iPhone time or smartphone time that they're looking at, because it's gotta be doing something to our eyes and our brains at this moment, right?
That's right. That's right. I think the internet companies are working on overtime, and Netflix is making a fortune. But the reality is we need to institute great discipline and structure for our kids as well. Like make sure that they get out of bed, that they actually get dressed and don't go to school in their pajamas, which is everyone's nightmare. But now you get to do it, and it's a reality, and have those disciplines in place, because your kids will be more well behaved as well when they've got structure. They've got something that they can count on. It's rhythm, it's routine. They can anticipate and expect what comes next, as opposed to, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm bored, and where there's boredom, there's mischief.
No doubt about it. I want to show you this pair of glasses that I bought about 3 weeks ago. I bought these glasses, and these are not blue blockers that they sell in America. These are actually for your computer screen, because I'm on the screen all the time. And though now I wear glasses because my eyesight's not as good as it used to be, then I decided to wear contacts because I don't like wearing glasses, because every time I teach, I take it off and I put it back on. I felt like the 70-year-old professor at the university. So in order to keep my contacts on, I brought these so I can protect my eyesight. I don't know. I'm not saying the company's name. Thousands upon thousands of people are watching this. I don't want to give anybody profit, but anyway, I'm just kidding. I don't know. But it's let me ask you a few questions then, based upon the body and mental health. So how important is it to get exercise in order for our sanity?
Yeah, look, there's no doubt that research overwhelmingly demonstrates that exercise is one of the greatest things that we can do, so as to serve to regulate, service our mental capacity, our emotional well-being, and even our relationship dynamic. And when we don't have that structure that we've just been talking about, that routine, when I'm binge watching until 2 a.m. and then I have a lazy sleep in, well, my body clock is now out of kilt. And when I wake up in the morning, my hormones are off balance. And so I don't feel like exercising. And because so many of us are governed by our feelings, we follow our feelings, but feelings are faulty. And so we don't end up exercising. And as a result, now is what we said before, is that slippery slope. It's that cycle that we enter into. But when we actually do inform our feelings, not follow our feelings, but say, I'm going to exercise no matter what, I'm going to get this rhythm, this structure, this routine down pat, and we get out there and exercise, we release into our body endorphins. Now, endorphins, most people have heard of this, but when I hear endorphins, I think dolphins. And dolphins, like in Hawaii, like they're always so happy. You've never seen a depressed dolphin. And they're like, exactly, they're swimming around in your body.
I'm communicating with you.
It's hard to feel bad when you feel so good. And so we are at the same time releasing or getting rid of, burning up the stress hormone cortisol in our system. And this, once again, is one of the greatest precursors to, evaporating from our brain, important neurochemicals and so on. So it's that slippery slope. Exercise is like a golden key. It couldn't be shouted more louder at the rooftops. So make sure that if you're going to get a routine at home, include exercise as part of that.
That's brilliant. I love that. I was wondering then, if you're going to do exercise, what would be the foods that you would want to avoid and the foods that you would want to eat more of?
Look, there's a whole host of different relationships that have been established between food and mood, between nutrition and brain condition. Love the sardines that you were bringing up before, because sardines, of course, have one of the highest sources of EPA and DHA, omega-3 fatty acids, which are good for the brain. And the reason why they're good for the brain is because 7 or 8% of the brain is made up of that fat. And what tends to happen is when we don't have those kinds of fats, or if we're stressed, we have a breakdown of the myelin sheath, the covering that that kind of protects the brain cell communication pipeline, and so it starts to erode away. And omega-3 is one of the rarely known substances that can actually repair the myelin sheath and give us good mental health and well-being, good brain function. But the thing to be concerned about, I'm not here to give you, anyone for that matter, advice on what you should eat in terms of, this is the best for your workout. That would be a whole other interview. But here's the key for mental and emotional health. When it comes to other types of fats, trans fats, trans because they transition from a liquid to a solid. So anything that starts out as a liquid and then becomes a solid, that's going to be solid in your artery. So bad news. And sugar. So what we tend to do is when I'm feeling fatigued because I haven't had a good night's sleep, I'll reach for my sugar fix to pick me up. And so it's like putting straw on the fire and there's a roar of energy and light and whoa, I feel good. But just like, putting straw on a fire, it only lasts for a few seconds and then it dies down and can almost kill the fire. You end up worse off in the end than what you were before you put the straw on the fire. And so now I needed another pick me up and another pick me up. And if we don't actually use the sugar to pick me myself up, then our bodies have this interesting way of doing it for us. So through the release of the stress hormones, if we are not burning it up through exercise, the stress hormones goes to the edges of our muscles and turns itself to a type of glucose. We call it glucocorticoids. It's sugar, gives us the energy that we need to deal with the stress that we have. And so if we don't burn this stuff up, it leads to weight gain, aging, degenerative disease, all of the good things that we love and want more of. Not. And so, So yeah, exercise and diet. So rather than what to eat, just be cautious. Don't eat too much sugar and don't eat too many trans fats.
That's awesome. I love that. That's great advice. I mean, you don't have to go any deeper than that. That's perfect right there. So I'm going to get some sardines, put it in a cup of avocado, and everybody grosses out with the sardines. They're like, I'd never eat that. Actually, this we ate this when we was growing up, and now I'm bringing it back into my family in the last couple of years. They don't like it. I'm the only one that eats it. And my kids call it end times food. This is not end times food. This is now times food. I'm telling you. Is that chickens I'm hearing in the backyard?
It is. We're kind of on a little bit of property. You can tell by the almost the jungle behind me here. We've got chickens and ducks and dogs and children. That's the rooster just saying good morning to you all. But speaking of chickens, a chicken is another great mental health food. Chicken is actually, or poultry, has the highest source of tryptophan, which is an amino acid that when you consume it, converts itself into serotonin. Most people have heard of serotonin these days because it's the number one chemical that's absent when we have depression or anxiety. So it's a great comfort food, a good emotional food to eat chicken. It balances your mood.
Right on. I'm a ribeye guy. Tell me about what's the ribeye steak doing to me?
Well, not so much for your mental health, but you might be interested to know there's been a recent discovery that has found that there's a particular acid found in red meat that, wait for it, contributes to belly fat erosion. So in other words, it eats away at belly fat. And so I don't know if that was good news right there. It's like,
no, that's good news.
Wait, yes, according to one research study.
I love it. So you are a good friend of many pastors, a confidant, and a lot of people in that field respect you throughout the world. Tell me about how that relationship got started and what burden or opportunity that God has placed on your heart about how the relationship between pastors and mental health and all of that's come about.
It's such a great question, Mike. And, obviously in our own journey, as we get to know each other, I'm no one special. I'm just an average, everyday Aussie bloke who loves real life, like getting raw, heart to heart connections. And God has put a passion on my heart to really equip and empower the church in particular in the area of mental and emotional and relational and behavioral well-being. And look, when I look at the landscape of the world, the church is by far the largest service provider of mental health education and awareness, because every Sunday a pastor will get up on stage or behind the pulpit and preach a message on how to renew your mind so as to transform your life. And so that right there is amazing. Like, we are advancing mental health through the church more than any other organization or institution on the planet.
Wow.
Now, if that's true, well, then we need to be teaching the right things. And all too often, we're just shooting from the hip going, well, this is what I think, or this is what I think that verse says as it relates to mental health. But to really get pastors equipped and empowered to be able to not just preach from knowledge of what they read in a book or what they think or their own opinion, but rather to go through a journey themselves to get good mental, emotional, relational, and behavioral health on board themselves. And then they can speak from a place of authority because they have nailed it themselves.
So are you developing a resource where pastors can go to a place where you are maybe compiling information in order for us to extract and be able to use intelligently in the way that we minister, possibly a place where people can go to in terms of, hey, I don't want anybody to know, but I need to talk to somebody. Is anything like that being developed? I knew you were talking about it at one time, but what's happening with that?
Yeah, yes and no. So we are developing a system called Peoplecare Global, which is not necessarily aimed at helping pastors themselves in terms of their own mental and emotional well-being, but rather helping pastors in helping people. And so when it comes to the church is like a magnet for people with mental and emotional as well as financial and relational difficulties. We come to the church for help. It's like, I need help. And all too often, a pastor is a leader, an amazing communicator, speaker, but not necessarily having the time, the capacity to sit down with every individual and counsel them. Because, well, let's just face it, we weren't called to counsel people. We were called to equip, empower, and disciple people. And so a lot of churches have pastoral care facilitators, people who you can go to have prayer counseling or to have, wise counsel given. And so all we're doing is creating a structure, a standardized system that we can put into the hands of churches that is developed by a team of experts from around the world without anybody taking credit. Just asking the question, what would it look like if we had no ego and no agenda, but we just developed quality resources to put into the hands of churches to help people? And so that's peoplecare.global.
Well, we definitely going to make sure that we have that at the bottom of the screen and at the end of the video cast to make sure that people can access that information and go there and check that out. Coming soon.
Launch is July 2020.
July 2020. Do you have the site up yet by any chance?
The domain is peoplecare.global, but to be launched in due course. Stay tuned.
So, Dr. Robi, not only you're my friend Robi, but you're also Dr. Robi. And so years ago, I had my own battles with anxiety. And it hit me more in my mid-30s than it did to my age right now. I'm not going to tell my age. People got to guess my age. I'm done telling you my age. But in my mid-30s, and in my mid-30s, I hit the wall emotionally big time. They had a lot of stuff going on. Capacity was being stretched. A new baby came into our family, our youngest daughter. That was about 15 years ago. Wasn't sleeping, hit the wall, was afraid to do it, didn't want to admit it. And because back then, nobody really talked about it. A lot of people suffered in silence. I would imagine all kinds of people. And then not only when you get it, everybody else has to, endure what you can articulate or express what you have. You just think you something's wrong with you. And I remember that time that it took about a year for me to actually go, okay, I think I am dealing with anxiety, a form of depression as well. I'm not sure. And I went and I sought some help, and I've been getting regular checkups for myself to make sure, because I feel that the most important thing that I have to offer my family and offer my faith community is my brain. That's the most important thing I offer is my brain. I offer my wife my body. No, just kidding. That's for another podcast. That's for a different doctor. Dr. Ruth Westheimer. You got to see that soon. But tell me, talk to me about that, because it took me a year to come out and admit it, that I was wrestling.
Well, 3 years ago, when you were going through all of this stuff, me assuming now that you're in your late 30s, is of course, we need to have a thorough understanding of what stress is, and there's this idea out there that stress is bad, and that if research shows if you believe it is bad, well, it is bad, and if you believe it's not bad, well, actually it's not so bad for you. But there are different types of stress, and when you understand the nature of the beast, actually you can work with it in a much more effective way. For example, 3 different types of stress. Stress starts out by being critical. Critical because it's essential. It's critically important to have stress. If you don't have stress, you're dead. Or if you don't have stress, you're bored, or you're not very productive, or you're not very effective in what you're doing. Your performance is not as great. So stress is great, but it can also be critical in terms of a critical incident. You're late. You've got this financial situation that you're facing right now due to the world, being turned upside down. But if we're not careful, critical stress can become compounded, where it happens too intensely. It happens in rapid succession. There's one thing after the other. It's like my grandmother got coronavirus, and then I lost my job, and then now I'm about to lose the house, and so there's one after the other, and so it becomes compounded, and that's where it starts to impact us biologically, emotionally, relationally. And if it keeps on going over a long period of time, then stress, number 3, turns into chronic stress. And this is the moment where stress can actually become distress, where we're no longer able to effectively handle the stress, and that's when we result in not being able to sleep, emotions being frayed, thoughts being all sorts of weird and wonderful, destructive and toxic thoughts, racing around in my body. And it seems as though I have no control over them. As one psychiatrist refers to them as ants, A-N-T-S, automatic negative thoughts. They're intrusive. They just crawl across the floor of my brain. It's like I have no control over them anymore. And so if we're aware, okay, so which stage of stress am I at, and how can I best respond right now? And it doesn't matter which stage you are, there's always something that we can do in response.
I love it. Let me ask you a question then. A lot of this word's been even more probably used in the last 2 years that I've heard it used than ever before. It's the word triggers. Talk to us. What are triggers, and how at some point does triggering become not my responsibility anymore? It's your responsibility because you triggered me. Talk to me about triggers.
Oh man, that's like, we could spend a whole hour on this topic. It's such an important topic. Look, we have a variety of different toxic thought styles, programming, if you will. It's like you clicked on a link on your computer, and now you've unleashed a virus in the mainframe. And so we have exaggerated thinking, exacerbated thinking, black and white thinking. It's all or nothing, good or bad, right or wrong, wicked or wonderful. We also have guilty thinking, but also the opposite of guilty thinking is, well, I'm not to blame, you're to blame. And this is a victim mindset. And so the moment that I feel as though I've been hard done by, I've been offended, and you are the cause, this is actually what we were talking about before in the press. What's the juice that comes out? Well, if the juice is somebody else is getting on my nerves, or the government, or Trump didn't respond early enough, or the Chinese, they covered it up, or, this, and we start the landlord who's about to take away when we start pointing the finger at somebody else, it's actually a reflection that your thought style has become toxic. That the moment you enter into a victim mindset, the next thing to follow is called entitlement. That I am entitled more. And then the third thing to follow is a demand for rights. And so we take the toxicity to the next level. But really, the antidote is responsibility, to be able to say, hey, I'm in charge of my own thinking. I need to hold every thought captive. Transformation comes from the renewing of my mind. Instead of meditating on the things that are wrong and people have done to me, high treason, betrayal, all of the things, fence is a great thing. if I've been offended, that's an opportunity for me to learn and develop in my character, to grow and rise above it and extend forgiveness and pray for my enemies. And hey, this is going to do me good, as opposed to you have offended me, now you should be punished. And so the world is turned upside down. And this is the slipperiest pathway to mental illness. If once we start scratching the rash, it feels good to scratch the rash, but it doesn't actually make the rash go away. It just makes the rash even more angry. And it feels so good to feel bad as we just continue to nurse, curse, and rehearse all of the bad stuff in our life. It's time to put some ointment on that rash and stop scratching.
That's good. Say that again. Nurse and rehearse. What was the middle one? Nurse, curse, and rehearse.
That's it. That's what we do. That's what we tend to do. That
is good. That'll preach right there. I'm going to take that along with everything else that you said. We nurse it, we curse it, then we rehearse it. Man, that's preachable.
Really what we need to do is we need to, whatever offense we have, we need to immerse it into the love of Jesus, and we need to reverse it and then disperse it from our life. We need to make sure that I'm not, continuing to, have this mouse on the treadmill going around and around, because that just makes lots of motion but no progress in my life. In fact, here's another way of thinking about it. It is the literal definition of hell to have a victim mindset. If you look at what Jesus said about hell, like this guy, rich guy, dies at the same time as a beggar called Lazarus at his gate. They both, go into the afterlife. One goes into Hades and one goes and hangs out with Abraham in what seems to be heaven. And the guy looks up and says, "Hey, send that guy down here to dip his finger in the water and cool my parched mouth, because I'm burning here." Notice entitlement straight away, because I'm a victim here, and so get that guy to serve me. But notice in the process that he never actually asks Abraham, "Hey, can I get out of here? Can I come up to where you are?" He just says, "No, send that guy down to where I am." When you're feeling broken, you just want to break other people too, so that they feel what you're feeling. But you don't actually want to get out of the pit that you've fallen into. You stay in hell. And so with this mental process, as the mouse is going round and around, we're making lots of motion, but no progress. You'll never get out of the pit of self-pity, if you will, when you're nursing, cursing, rehearsing all of the bad stuff. We need to learn how to start to, Philippians 4 verse 8, meditate on the things that are right and pure and good and just, because when we do, verse 7 promises us there's this peace that surpasses all understanding that will guard our heart and our mind in Christ Jesus.
Man, I love this. Let me ask you, jumping off of what you just said, what is the advantage that Christians have when we forgive? What is the advantage that non-believers have when we pray? Well, tell me what happens.
The thing about forgiveness, and because there's a lot of misunderstanding, is that unforgiveness is like our baggage, and if you're walking around with baggage all day long, it weighs you down and you get exhausted and fatigued. And so when we learn to let go of our baggage, that right there is the outworking of forgiveness. It's a daily choice, a decision. I'm not going to dwell negatively on what transpired. I'm going to let go of my lust for revenge, to want something bad to happen to that person, my demand for equality or whatever it might be, or for retribution or for justice. I'm just going to let go and let God. I'm going to trust God with the justice, with the revenge, so to speak, because the Bible says it is mine to avenge, says the Lord. So all right, then I'm going to hand that over to you. But in understanding that God's view of justice is not always our view of justice, as God kind of goes up to have a discussion with that person, and that person says, "I'm so sorry, God," and God's like, "Oh, you're sorry? Oh, okay then, I forgive you." And we're like, "Forgive them? No, like they deserve to be like hit by a bus. Come on!" And so we kind of want something bad to happen to them. When we let go of that, the extension of that gift of forgiveness, even if it's undeserved, because there's no strings attached to forgiveness. In fact, the person doesn't even need to be alive anymore, and you can extend the gift of forgiveness because it's got nothing to do with them and everything to do with you. Yeah. It's not about their heart. It's about your heart. It's about you letting go of your hurt, your pain, your bitterness, your resentment. And when we give the gift of forgiveness, it's not until we do that we discover the gift is actually really intended for me. This is my get out of jail free card. As I extend forgiveness, I free myself in the process.
That is powerful. That is so true and so amazing. And thank you for reiterating that. That is so incredible for us to understand. what forgiveness does, and not only for them, but it's really a gift for us. Thank you so much. Dr. Robi, we could go on for another couple of 45 minutes or another hour. I would love to catch up with you for a part 2 of this questionnaire interview conversation that we've been having. It's just been so rich. I know there's so many more things that we could ask you for, but at this moment, I just want to ask you if at this point, what is the number one thing that you would just say in this crisis, in this time, with what's going on in our world and in everybody's own personal world? First thing that we got to do, first and foremost.
Well, in this particular time, a lot of people are asking the "but what if" questions. But what if I lose my job? But what if this goes on for another 6 months? But what if I lose my house? What if I? And so those "but what if" questions are real, and they are important to think and to address. But the time to address them is not all the time. And what tends to happen is when we're out of our normal routine and rhythm, and we're at home and we're in the pockets of everyone else, well, these thoughts become sticky. They stay with me day and night. They kind of like having honey on my fingers, and everything I touch now, it just makes sticky. And so these sticky thoughts, I'll go to bed with them on my mind. I'll dream about them all night long. I'll wake up with them on my mind, and I just can't seem to shake them out of my head. And so the number one thing that I would say is guard your heart and your mind, because the best way to guard your heart is to be careful what you allow through the gate of your mind, because it transitions south. And so if you're having these sticky thoughts, exercise just 1 degree of control over them. Look, it is okay to think these thoughts, but it's not okay to think them all the time. So when is the time? Choose a time. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's the time I'm going to be thinking about these thoughts. And for how long? And in what way? Am I going to talk about it with somebody? Am I going to open a book? Am I going to write these thoughts down? Just exercise a degree of control. But when you do, when you're asking the "but what if" questions, make sure it's balanced. But what if God comes through? But what if his promise is true, that all things work together for good according to those who believe? But what if those prophetic voices who say that this is going to go as fast? But what if? Make sure it's balanced, because that helps your mental and emotional stability. It helps you be good for the family as well as for yourself.
Dr. Robi, thank you so much for your time. That last parting piece of advice is critical right now for a lot of people. I know I could use it in my own house right now. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your expertise and your knowledge, and really sharing your time with us. It's been really, really rich. And we love and appreciate you. I can't wait to have you back in Hawaii or wherever we meet again. And Lord bless you. And in the next 3 days, may your quarantine time go by so quickly.
Yes.
All right. You take care. Love you, man.
Hey, great chatting with you. Bless you, mate. Thanks.
Bless you too. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed that video cast with Dr. Robi Sonderegger. I can't wait for you to go to his website and add your information to it. And give him your details, not a lot, but really you're going to get an opportunity in the next few months before he launches his website in the month of July 2020. Until then, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Pass on this podcast, video cast to as many people as you can. Mental health is a massive issue right now. And may the Lord bless you, keep you, cause his face to shine upon you, and grant you peace. The Lord bless you. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you for tuning into our podcast. Aloha.